Hey guys, it's Mrs. Wallace. I just wanted to give it another shot to describe this concept of an input question. So I bungled it in class and I felt really silly, and I just wanted to give a little bit of a clearer explanation, especially in case you were really confused. Remember, this has to do with determining comparative advantage. The first step in all of these questions is deciding, which society or which person has the comparative advantage. And input questions are inherently a little bit different. Remember, inputs make outputs. So inputs make products and services. Inputs would include like land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. So when we're given data in terms of hours, time it takes to do something, acres of land, horsepower, those types of things would be resource or input questions. And they just require us to think a little bit differently about them. And my apologies, I think the way I wrote the data on the chart, it looks like bread and corn, and it's a little deceiving because my brain just wants to say 4 bread and 2 corn, and that's not what we're looking at. For the United States, we're looking at in 4 hours doing 1 bread, and in 2 hours doing 1 corn, okay? So in the time that you're making 1 bread, you could do 2 corn. So, 1 bread equals 2 corns, okay? So that's like, in terms of writing down our opportunity cost, you can think about this intuitively. 1 bread should equal 2 corn. And once I have one of my opportunity costs down, I know that the alternative will really be a reciprocal. If 1 bread equals 2 corns, then 1 corn should equal the reciprocal of that, a half a bread, okay? The other thing you can do is a little trick for input problems. So I'll just note this here, and maybe if you get lost in some of the things like I was, and you want to check yourself, okay, here's like a little cheat way to kind of look at this. For input problems, okay, the opportunity cost of A, okay, good A, let's say it's bread. The opportunity cost for bread would be equal to A over B, okay? So if I'm looking at France and I want to figure out what is the opportunity cost in France, of 1 loaf of bread, okay? In terms of an output of 1 loaf of bread, I could say, okay, in France, if I have 1 bread, I know that that should equal 4 over 6, okay? And another way to say that, of course, is 2/3. So in France, a bread would cost 2/3 and 2/3 of a corn, and of course, a corn will cost 3/2 or 6/4 of a bread, okay? So once I have my opportunity cost, I can think about, who has the comparative advantage, okay? And this would be for bread. So whenever I'm looking at comparative advantage, I'm always looking, don't get caught like looking at the US, and trying to find the comparative advantage, because these are the costs of 2 different products, right? You're looking at the comparative advantage, who can produce bread cheaper. That's definitely France compared to the United States. 2/3 of corn is cheaper than 2 corn, and in the case of corn, the United States is giving up less bread, so it's cheaper for the United States to produce corn. And if these 2 countries were going to trade, France would only make bread, the United States would only make corn, and in that theory, they would be able to create a great deal more bread and corn because both of them specialize. Obviously, in the real world, countries don't specialize to the point where they only make one good, right? We see a variety of different reasons why, in a lot of cases, the United States might import, some PPC masks and different types of PPE masks and stuff like that, but we might also make them in the US, right, for a variety of reasons, okay? So I hope that helps a little more clear. You can kind of look at the input, kind of trick, or you can, intuitively think about, like we did with the US and bread and corn, if we can make in 4 hours 1 bread and in 2 hours 1 corn every time we're making 1 bread, and it takes us, all of that time, in that same 4 hours, we could actually do 2 corns, okay? I hope that helps a little bit better. Sorry about class, okay? Have a great day tomorrow. See you on Thursday.